Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights the work of community leaders, tech entrepreneurs, nonprofit professionals, and talent development advocates in Tulsa. Grow With Us is a podcast of In Tulsa. In Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, we are in conversation with Trey Thaxton, the CEO and creative director of Goldmill Co. We discuss his work with brands like Greenwood Avenue, Fire in Little Africa, and Silhouette Sneakers, the creative process behind building and marketing a brand, and the future of Goldmill Co. in Tulsa. Trey, it's so great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Evan. It's an honor, man. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. I think we're going to have a great episode here. I'm really excited to kind of talk about the topics that we're going to talk about today. I had the pleasure of getting coffee with you a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
Maybe last week. But
yeah, shout out to Triangle.
Triangle. That was my first time being there.
Same.
Hey, I'll be back.
Yeah,
I liked
it. Was a good try.
But it was great to connect with you there and kind of really laid the foundation for what we're going to talk about in this episode. And I am really excited for you to share your story and kind of your entrepreneurial journey with our Grow With Us audience. So
yes, sir.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your story in whatever way you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well, again, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate the time. My name is Trey Thaxton. I am CEO and creative director of a company called Goldmill. How far do we go back? I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, 1987. I've been in Tulsa for over half my life now. I'll be 36 this year, which is bananas. But yeah, I moved to Tulsa when I was 11 years old, so didn't really have a choice. My parents came here to join a ministry, and I went to, again, was 11 years old, turning 12 that summer, went to Union Elementary School, grew up and went to the high school there. I graduated 2005, went to OSU in Omogi to study design. That's really how I got into what I'm doing now. I actually played basketball at Union for a couple of years. I actually got cut my senior year, which is how
happens.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. It happened to Jordan. You know, look at him now. Look at us now. Look at us now. But yeah, so that's how I got into design. So I took a Photoshop class my senior year, and that's when I found out like what a designer was. That was an actual thing. And my mom found OSU in Omogi, and I went there and graduated with a degree from there. It was a 2-year program. Learned advertising, and that's what got me into my career. So I worked for an ad agency here in town called Station 8 for 2 years. After I graduated, I left there to go help a friend start a youth ministry. When I was 25, that's where my wife at. Served there for about 5 years, and then stepped down to start Goldmill in kind of ended 2017. And yeah, been running that ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know. I love your story. We have a little bit of similarity. Kind of came to Tulsa around the same time in our lives. And I feel like, middle and high school is a time where you're trying to figure out who's me, who do I want to be, who are all these other people too.
Exactly.
And why do they have everything to say about me?
Exactly. Yeah. I remember crying, like being in my room crying when we first moved here. Cause I'm from Illinois, around Chicago area. And my parents like Oklahoma. I was like, Oklahoma? Like, this is pre like Instagram, all the things. So I couldn't really see it.
You're like, where's that?
Yeah. I was like, do we have to go to school on like a horse? Like, do we live in, I don't know. Like, what does that even mean? So, yeah.
Everyone's first impressions of Oklahoma, I think more broadly, but then once, I think Tulsa specifically, it's kind of really different and it's never what you're expecting. I think that's kind of a theme that's come up on the 100%. Podcast quite a bit. It's just that, people come to Tulsa with preconceived notions, and I think the city gets a chance to prove them wrong or prove them right. 100%. And most times I think it proves them wrong in a good way. So that's kind of exciting. Speaking of Tulsa, like kind of what has your relationship been with the city? How's it kind of played a role in your different roles and the way you interact with it?
Yeah, well, definitely I've grown up here, become a man and an adult here. So Tulsa's been a big part of my life. I think when I've been 11, 12, I'm not paying attention to the city or what's around. But just being able to see it grow in the last, 10 plus years has been phenomenal. I think the trajectory of where it's headed right now. And my wife's actually from California. She always talks about moving back. There's no scenery here, but we both are here because we believe like it's really is the people. Like that's one thing I can say for sure is less than the city or the jobs here. It's really about like the people in the community. I think it's why we've stayed so long. I've never met a group of people who are so for other people than I have here. And it's a beautiful thing. So my relationship with the city is really more so like it's the people here.
And I think you've also probably got, if you don't mind me diving into this a little bit, but probably like a faith-based community here too, which I think can really tie you to a place. If you're in community with folks 100%. In that space.
I feel like Tulsa is one of the, maybe the only or one of the few places where you'll meet somebody's like, how'd you get to Tulsa? And they say either God brought me here or came to go to RU or Rhema or RU, like school. So it's one of the few places I've heard people say, God told me to move to Tulsa.
Yeah, so, and Transformation Church like has a huge presence here too. And I've heard lots of folks say that that's why I'm here, is because of Transformation.
For sure.
I think it's really interesting too, just everyone's communities here in the city can be so vastly different. Me personally, I don't necessarily have a faith-based community, but I think I have a community that is that fills my cup in the same way, affirms my identity, affirms my beliefs. For me, that's the LGBT community. And so I like that, you and I both get to have different elements of the community part.
For sure.
In a city like Tulsa. And we know names, we know faces, we know where to go to be filled up. And we know when to be excited because our community is telling us that this is happening. And I think it's a really cool element of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's huge.
So, kind of talking a little bit more professionally, I'm really jazzed to kind of talk about Goldmill Co. and everything that you guys are doing. So, for those of you that have been in Tulsa for the past few years, you might recognize some of the brands that you guys have worked on, like the Greenwood Avenue brand, which you're wearing right now. I love Fire in Little Africa, Silhouette Sneakers and Art. Super amazing and impactful brands here in the city. So, go ahead and tell us the origin and impact of Goldmill.
Yeah. So, again, started that in 2017. And I worked for agency before starting it and then worked in ministry after leaving that first agency job. And I think for me, like and I've told Jesse this in the past, like as a designer, like when I was in school, like the pinnacle of design was like, if I could ever just work for the NBA or Nike, like I would have my career complete. Like Thanos, 5 rings, snap, I'm good. We done. We won. But after working in ministry for a while, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this for the next 20, 30 years before I retire, like I want to make sure that everything I touch like has real value. I don't want to just have to just sell cars and clothes and things that like are really just fools go at the end of the day. That's supposed to bring you joy. Yeah. I was in a meeting, talking to a friend about a meeting one time with our old boss, and I won't say the name of the casino, but it was one of the casinos, and they were in a room, and the owners came in and was like, okay guys, let's sell some false hope today. And I was like, it just didn't sit right. I was like, is that really like what we're doing out here? It's like, it's not worth my time and it's not purpose for me. So I was like, how can I do what I love to do, but also be in purpose? That's a big part of what I talk to our staff about, my family, my wife, kids, is really like finding purpose.
Yeah.
And I do believe I'm gifted in this area. And right now I'm focused on like creating a space. And I believe that is and will be Goldmill, to create a place that has and creates value. Yeah. So our goal right now is to create brands that uplift, inspire, and shine. So it's uplifting our community, uplifting other people. If we can inspire others to be in purpose themselves and then just shine just by being a light through what we do. So like Greenwood Ave is a product of one of those things. So that started in 2018, just as a way to, again, uplift other Black entrepreneurs based off of the history of Greenwood and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Started as a t-shirt line, became a video series, again, telling more stories about Black entrepreneurs. And now we recently launched a magazine back in January of this year that does the same thing, just storytelling around not really the massacre side of the history, but the what happened, what was there before, what was there after, and how people are carrying on that spirit. So that's really the impetus of Goldmill. We want to do things that inspire people to be in purpose, inspire people to follow their dreams and passions, and hopefully live out their dreams.
That's amazing. No, I love that. I'm going to dive deep into some of these because I think something for me that I don't know if I can mark it in time or anything, but just something that I've conceptualized for just my experience here in Tulsa is that like in high school is when I first learned about Greenwood, Greenwood Ave, the massacre and everything. And first of all, I'll just throw it out there, too late. I was already 15 years old, already made so many preconceived notions. And then to be confronted with like the history of my city, I feel like I should have known about it for way longer. And so then I learned about it in high school and went to a high school in Tulsa that was, directly affected by the legacy and history of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And so to have heard about it then, and then for some time to have gone by, and me finish my whole experience at Booker T, which was in 2016. Then I went off to college, and it was like I was trying to think about like what. Whenever telling people about like Tulsa, like, oh, well, there's this thing that happened here. You might have heard about this. And most of the time my peers were like, no, I didn't hear about that. Or even some of my like history professors or things like that. And so coming back to Tulsa kind of periodically throughout my like 4 years and stuff, like the presence of Greenwood was only growing and was starting. And I am going to give you credit for that in the sense of like, it didn't just start as a t-shirt line in the sense that like, yes, those are the physical products, but that started putting Greenwood out there again. Not that it wasn't out there, but like the fact that the visibility creates so much, I think, just like frequency for people. And I don't want to, I guess that's like an important element of like advertising and those things, like just knowing that the things that you are doing cause an impact on people every time they see it. Like,
I appreciate that.
I know 1921. I know what that means every time I see it, and I associate it with this city where I'm at right now. And I think that's pretty impactful. And you could take that probably with all of these other brands that you've worked on, like Fire in Little Africa, creating this like R&B and like hip hop, like musical production here essentially. And like, it's so cool that the city and these brands have the ability to like really showcase who they are through their visuals and the way that people interact with them.
100%. Yeah, I appreciate that. And my hope, again, using these gifts, we can do logo design, and that all is storytelling, whether it be a magazine, a t-shirt, a logo. And for me, it's really about like, what are the stories that we're telling? So we can create brands for any company, but I want to, again, why we're choosing, like making sure our yeses are important. Why we're choosing these types of brands, because it matters. And when I've had people come into our pop-up shop and like literally with tears in their eyes, like, I had no idea this happened, or grew up here my whole life. I literally didn't know this existed. Like, there's a reason that needs to happen. And not to always like think of like a lot of Black movies and things, it's always like the trauma, but like, what we're trying to do is like show the uplifting side of that. So we can be that light again in this arena. So how we work with Fire in Little Africa is Stevie Johnson saw our brand Greenwood Ave. We did a collab with a company called Breakout. And so I met him, and I went to high school with Steph Simon, actually.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so I've known him for a long time, but he didn't know I was working on this, and we kind of reconnected and helped build out the brand for that. I met Coop, who owns Silhouette, 3 years ago when she first started through Greenwood Ave. Yeah. So she was the first person to also carry our merch there. So that was a great collaboration. It's not only been a way to uplift Greenwood entrepreneurs, but also a way for me to be able to connect with other people and show what we're doing and what we're capable of. And when that brand resonates with them, we're able to just make another connection.
I want to jump into talk a little bit more about the storytelling piece, because I think it's really important to talk about like the collaboration that it takes to do that. Yeah. Maybe kind of talk to me a little bit about what those first conversations were like with these entrepreneurs, and how were their visions communicated to you, and then what inspired you to bring them to life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess we can stay on these two for sake of time. I'll say for Fire in Little Africa for sure. I sat down with Chris Davis and Stevie, who were executive producing it, and I've known Chris for a little bit. That was our first time actually working together. But when they told me, "Hey, we're working on a project. We know you work with Greenwood Ave. We want to do something around celebrating their history," obviously piqued my interest. But when they told me the name, I was already in. I was like, "What's it called?" It's like Fire in Little Africa. I'm in. I already got it. It immediately just like clicked, and I saw all the visuals. But those first conversations were just kind of like giving me free reign to create something around it. And I think just why I try to do things intentionally and in excellence is it makes those conversations a lot easier. So for that, it wasn't like we need 20 comps or 30 ideas. It was like, we trust you. So really, like, first idea kind of won, honestly. And because it already meant a lot to me, and I knew where they were trying to go with it. Like those collaborative conversations were pretty easy, just because we had already built that trust through the brand that they already knew about. So the Fire in Little Africa was an amazing project. I still think there's a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak, of what that potential is. But the brand, the lettering from that brand was taken from some of the postcards that were sent out from back in the day, like that, those typography, we recreated that and made that be the font for the brand, which again has that kind of element undertone in there as well. And then Silhouette, I met Coop. I don't put her on blast, but she had a couple things she was about to do, and It wasn't great. It wasn't the best. I don't know who did it before, but again, just kind of had that trust. And I met her through a mutual friend, Brandon Oldham, connected us, and he had built trust with him, and he said, "Hey, Trey can help you," and she trusted me to slightly shun what she was working on before and be able to present some other ideas. So we went through maybe a couple iterations, but Alcy now is like tattooed on her leg, which is the first time I've ever had a piece I've done. Cool. Oh yeah, cried in the shower for sure. That was tears of joy for sure. First time somebody has like tattooed a logo I made on their leg, which I know, I mean, like, you're kind of married to it now. Oh, you can get it removed, I guess, technically, but
you wouldn't want to. It's too cool.
Cool. But to do something that like is a staple in Tulsa and probably the world eventually, what she's doing now, outside of just a sneaker shop, is really amazing. But to be able to be with these people when they're getting started and have them trust me to bring their visions to life, like that honestly means a lot to me. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that part. And I don't think you put her on blast at all. I think it's so, I think there's a certain humility that entrepreneurs either need to have or probably do have already, and I think she's kind of more the latter, where you're growing. You're not married to anything until it feels right, and you were able to come in and make it feel right.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Well, I think too. I mean, I'm not recording this podcast because I would be terrible at it. That's why Jesse's here. Like, we are. We got to put aces in their places. Like you're doing an amazing job as host. That's not me. So I think when we're all in our spot, and I think Tulsa is getting better at that, is we will all play our part. Like, we can all win. I heard this analogy from Felicia Hatcher. She's the CEO of Black Ambition, and she was talking about a piece of the pie is like, that's kind of a flawed analogy, because once we eat it, it's gone. Yeah. And like, if she's talking about, like, if we eat from the garden, then we all can eat, but we also have seeds. Then we can plant those seeds like for the next generation. So I think Tulsa, at least the community I'm part of, I really feels like embodies that, where we can all eat. Like, nobody, it's really more about collaboration over competition. And if someone else that we do a brand for grows and becomes a $1 billion company, great. Now we branded a $1 billion company. Now if they win, if Coop is successful, I'm successful. Frying Little Africa is successful, I'm successful. So that's kind of how we try to approach our projects.
That's a great analogy. I like that a lot. It's I feel like a similar one is like, a seat at the table, and it's like, well, how big can the table get if everyone's got a seat? But like this garden analogy, because a garden can be however big it needs to be.
100%. 100%.
I also want to talk a little bit about this print magazine of the Greenwood Ave. I think maybe my question is kind of what made you want to go print? I think for me, the reason I asked that question is that, I feel like there might be this idea or notion that print's like a dying media or whatever. And, we don't, everyone's online, everyone's on their phones. I'm not trying to sit here and say I'm like a purist or anything, but I appreciate the novelty of the tactile, opening things up, looking at pages, things like that. And so I think it's really cool that print is still valid. It's like the digital and analog. There's so much merit to each different medium, and I think that you nailed that with this magazine. And kind of, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my background was in print design, branding and print design. So that was always something I've always loved. I love like the smell of a book or magazine, those pages, like you said, the tactile, feeling the paperweight, the cover, like that all like matters. I think we lose a lot of that with digital. And the beauty of like the brand is we have these different touch points of like, there's the video series that's just online, there's the merch, which people can wear, but then this print piece is another way we can again tell stories just in a different version. And I think for me, just I'm a lover of print, and I do like the novelty of that. And for me, if we did it just a digital version, I can just see people like they'll look at the pictures and not read the words, just scroll right past it and just gone. But I think for this, like, it can be on a coffee table, it can be on a bookshelf, it can be passed around and shared, and it's really beautiful imagery. But the stories are actually really in depth as well. Like, we spend a lot of time writing those and got different writers for different subjects. But yeah, I think there's beauty in that print and being able to touch it and feel and see yourself reflected in those pages. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing. And the idea of Greenwood Ave, the theme, the ethos for all that we're doing is Greenwood Ave is everywhere. And I think this gives us a way to, again, not just be online, but it is everywhere. We're in print too. So yeah.
I think I've kind of jumped around this question with some other ones, but it's kind of apparent from your company's portfolio that there's a real concerted effort for developing these Tulsa-based companies and brands. So with Greenwood Avenue and Fire in Little Africa, how has like the history of Tulsa played a role in the storytelling for these brands?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're both obviously based and rooted in the history of Black Wall Street and Greenwood. And I would say clearly and like without any shame, like it was not on my radar like before 2017, 18. I just wasn't thinking about it. And was having a conversation with Brandon Oldham before I started the brand. And it's like, you know what, I want to use these gifts to help share this part of the story. And that has led to some other projects and things being attached to Greenwood Ave. So I would say it's been a big part. And I believe in being in blooming where you're planted. And
in the garden.
In the garden. There you go. It's all coming back around. But yeah, seriously, like I think it's trying to help where we are. Like I think, and not that we only do Tulsa work in Tulsa, but because we are based here, like we want to make Tulsa as is what GCAF says, vibrant and inclusive as possible.
Vibrant and inclusive, yeah.
So we want to help Tulsa like shine and be a light and do the best that we can. If we're here, like I wanted to be a part of creating a city that I wanted to live in. That was part of my work when I was working at the church. Is like our whole thing was let's just create a church we want to go to. And I think for us now, being on the other side of that is like, how do we create a city we want to live in? Mm-hmm. And if I'm seeing like Greenwood stuff outside of Tulsa, it's like, well, Tulsa should have a really high-end presence for Greenwood Ave as well. And that's what we're trying to create with that. Fire in Little Africa, this is, based in history. We're talking, it's going to be on, we partnered with Motown. Like we got to set a standard. So try to just bump everything up as high as we can go and make sure we're representing ourselves, representing Christ properly. And that's through excellence in my mind. So that's what we try to do with everything that we do. Small and big.
I love that. And I think the cool part about kind of what I think you mentioned this like with the narrative of like the magazine and also with really just the Greenwood Avenue brand is that like, yes, there's a focus on the past and what happened here, that history, but there's also the legacy of that, the active legacy, what's happening in Tulsa now that I think you focus a lot of your narratives on now. And the fact that, we're in 2023 wearing a Greenwood Avenue shirt that, might say over 100 years ago, but there's a spirit that has existed here 100%. For more than 100 years.
100%. Yeah, I think was walking in like Walmart one day and when I first started the brand, I saw like, we'll see like Harley Davidson shirts and things like that. These are like 100-year-old brands. And it's like, well, Tulsa Greenwood never got a chance to like be that. So we're kind of trying to recreate, okay, now this is a legacy brand. I mean, Legacy Fest is coming this week, happening this weekend in Tulsa. I mean, it's there and it's everywhere. And our goal really, because there are so many different things, there's Black Wall Street Times, there's other T-shirts that are here. I'm not like, again, trying to cannibalize the story, the conversation around it, because there's so many different things. There's the fight for justice. There's the past, the survivors are still fighting for money. Like there's so many different areas. What I'm trying to hopefully do is really kind of even go outside of Tulsa and bring people back here. It's like the magazine has features from everywhere, from Houston, LA, New York, London, and trying to kind of bring that spirit that is everywhere back and kind of tie it back to the home base back home. Yeah,
I mean, and the Black experience isn't a monolith, and it's not like every Black person in Tulsa has the same experience as someone in Houston or whatever. But I think interacting with the history, I think that there is a similar experience that the Black folks have, confronting the history and then also confronting what's going on here now, the legacy and the vibrancy that's going on now. 100%. I think that can inspire folks all across the country, not just here in Tulsa.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I love that. We're kind of touching on this as well, but like zooming out a little bit, what are some of the fundamentals of building a notable brand?
I've been diving into like what is our task, what is our mode of operation as a company, like when it comes to branding, because there really is so many different ways and avenues. Like no one company is the same, no one brand's the same, no one mission is the same. So for branding, we're really creating these specific solutions to like unique problems. And I think for a notable brand, it really is about what is that problem that you're solving, like the why. It's for me, it goes back to the why. For any brand that sustains, they have a clear why, like the Nikes and the Apples, like they stick around because we all know why they exist and what they're doing with that. A brand is such a overused word nowadays. Like everybody's their own brand, and I'm an icon. I got my own. It's just so overused. So I think for me, it's really about authenticity. Like if you can have that why and it can be authentic, then it will work.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. Authenticity is really, I feel like it might be a little tagline of Gen Z, but or just really what the time we're living in right now. We want people to be real.
Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily, if I'm going to be sold something, I don't want to know that you're selling it to me. Or maybe I do want to know,
Right.
and you tell me why, because it's important to you and
Exactly.
it has this value to you. That's rather what I'd want, instead of like all these roundabouts
Mm-hmm.
to like the ways, I don't know, just I kind of see that happening
Yeah.
in social media, because obviously branding and social media and that piece is like a huge part of telling your story
Mm-hmm.
visually.
It's real. And social, like every scroll is like, let me show you how to 3-day course of how to do this and
Yep.
sell this and get your funnels. Like I honestly could literally care less about any of that stuff. So I even struggle with that a lot of times when we do branding and have our own brand that we will help if we sold things to, get revenue flowing in. But trying to make sure, again, we're being authentic. We're not just doing all kind of sales for this and buy this and buy that. Like it really wanted to have a reason behind all of that. So it's I don't know if we can say authenticity in the world of AI, which is another conversation for another day. But yeah, that's important for us.
It's very important. And I'm kind of just moved into a new role, and a lot of my new role is like, telling our story, understanding what our brand is, and then also like working in the design. And so not manipulating, but
Mm-hmm.
using bits of our brand into the things that we do to tell a story in a cohesive way.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes. You feel like you have so many things to say,
Mm-hmm.
but you really kind of have to fit that into either like a content block, and like
Mm-hmm.
how is it going to be effectively received,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you effectively communicate it too? So it's a fine line that I know why marketing is such a huge thing for so many companies, because it's telling what the company does, who the company is, who are the people that work at the company, what's the mission. It has a hand in every element, and it's nothing to. It's not technical either.
Yes,
There's
100%.
technical aspects. There's visuals. There's so many parts of it. So
it's a lot. Yeah, we kind of focus on more the branding side, and basically because of that, like marketing can be so huge. We kind of like there's the hunting versus farming analogy. So like branding is more like the hunting. You kind of go out, the logo, you kill it, you bring it home, you skin it. Now you got a logo. Like farming is more like marketing, where we got to like tend to the garden and plant the seeds, and we got to talk to the plants and nurture people. Like it's a lot more like day-to-day work than I guess branding would be. Both very important and both going hand in hand with brand storytelling as a whole. But yeah, it is not easy.
Yeah, that's what we're both there a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and kind of wrapping us up here a little bit, I'd love for you to kind of tell us what the future of Goldmill Co looks like for you. How are you guys thinking about the future?
Yeah, so future of Goldmill in my mind is huge. Honestly, again, I've kind of pivoted this last couple of years to like I'm doing air quotes for the podcast audience, the Trey the designer, to now like Trey the CEO of Goldmill, where we're creating this space where other creatives can come in and be in purpose.
Yeah.
Again, like I said earlier, I feel like my personal purpose is to create pathways to purpose. So I know for me to do that, I need to have a platform where people can also come in and be their best selves. So building these different brands has allowed me to create a space where we're able to started hiring people in 2020. We have a team of about 5 right now. But what I see is like and especially I think for Tulsa, this doesn't exist yet, at least the way I've seen it. Just this creative hub where like, I guess big vision is for Goldmill, we can be at a table in January and say, hey guys, we got 3 months and we got $3 million. Like, what are we going to do? It could be a film. It could be another brand. It could be create this facility or this space, and then let that be in the ecosystem, our Goldmill ecosystem, and then we go to the next thing. So that's kind of like big vision for Goldmill. We have Greenwood Ave running. We'll probably launch a podcast in the next year and a half to go along with our magazine and merch and video series. We're going to launch a brand called XO, which is a basketball brand for arts and culture that I have this big give back component to it as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'll be coming in 24. There's a couple other things on the back burner, but it's really just about, again, creating these brands that uplift, inspire, and shine, and becoming that hub for really people who feel creative and they want to do meaningful creative work, but not in the grind of like commercialism and like just selling for a profit, but want to do that meaningful work. I think Goldmill is going to be that hub for that type of work to be done in Tulsa and around the world.
That's amazing. No, I think that it doesn't exist here, quite frankly. And I think that there's a big appetite for it. I know so many creatives that are like, don't necessarily want to go corporate or, want to find a way to connect this, maybe artistic expression to something that is at least valuable to them in some way, whether it's for their community or for their city, even more broad. It could be even more broader than that. But that's awesome. I think it's a big vision, and I want to continue to support you guys in whatever way that we can.
Appreciate it.
And maybe it's buying some merch.
Yes,
maybe it's
greenwoodave.com.
Yeah. Let's just pivot into that. How would you like our audience to get either in touch with the brands or maybe you, if they're interested in being creatives as well? Like, what's a good way to get in touch?
So Goldmill.co, Goldmill.co is our website, which is really just our reel right now. Agencies do themselves last, so you need to create that. Our brand is Greenwood Ave. It's at greenwoodave.com. You can subscribe to the magazine. You can purchase merch there. If you're subscribed, you actually get 21% off of merch throughout the year of your subscription, which is pretty cool.
Love that.
See what we did there? Yeah. And then, everything else we flow through there. So there'll be some new things coming out. Our new magazine will come out in July. We haven't, I don't know if I've said this anywhere else yet, but we are actually going to be in Barnes & Noble starting in July for the magazine. So it'll be available there pretty soon as well. So really excited about that, and just thankful to be able to get the word out more about, again, it's really purpose. Like everything I do is a secret agent to just really get in the room and talk about purpose and like, hopefully inspire people to be their best selves, to really find their purpose and not just live day to day, just, wandering around. Like, I want everybody to be purposeful.
That's amazing. I think that's a great note for folks to hear, and I hope it resonates with our listeners that you can find purpose.
Yeah, you can. I mean, the podcast is Grow With Us, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the gardens, and for us, for Goldmill, like our last year is really about being healthy, and healthy things grow. So if you can be healthy, you can grow. So, So for Grow With Us, I think that'd be a you
just gave us something there. Branding genius over here. I'm gonna have to listen to that, work it around, see what I can do with it. Trey, this has been great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Evan.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Grow With Us. Grow With Us is supported by Tulsa initiatives. If you are interested in learning more about Tulsa services for job placement and workforce initiatives, please visit talent.intulsa.com. From there, you can join our talent network, where you'll get access to our newsletter, and our talent team will make sure we put the right opportunities on your radar. We will put the choice to pursue a new career and opportunities in your hands. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. It really helps. Grow With Us is edited and engineered by Rant9 Productions and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.